very, very cold. Alright. So, I've been thinking about this for like 2 days, and I guess I'm going to talk about it now. This is not something that I was like just came to me. This is something that I've been thinking about for a long time, and I guess now that I'm doing these run casts, y'all are going to hear about it. I read Thai, speak Thai, read, write Thai, and that rule in English about never reading the comments applies in Thai too. Like, you really just should never ever read comments on anything, but you do. It's like you can't help yourself, even though you know you shouldn't do it. But Kevin is always interested in what the Thai conversation is after fights that we watch. He wants to see like what Thai, putting the thumb on the pulse of Thai conversation after fights and stuff. But what's interesting about it, or maybe what's not interesting about it, because it's exactly like it would be in English, is that it depends very much on what you're looking at. So if I read the comments in Thai on like Nui Dino's page, it's very different than even the comments that are on Mr. Pong's page, and that's even different from what's on like SSM Sport and stuff like this. So to put this in perspective, would be like the comments you get on Joe Rogan versus like ESPN versus some news reporter who I'm unaware of names of news reporters. So that's the best I can do, is give you those examples. But so I've been reading these comments after a number of promotions over the past few days, because there was one on Friday night. Then on Saturday there's a really big RWS show. First ever female Rajadamnern Stadium champion, which is Somratsumi, won her fight. She's also two-time champion of RWS at 2 different weight categories, so she's kind of like the darling of the show, and it's cool to have the first female Rajadamnern Stadium champion. And then on Sunday there was a Thai fight. So none of these are like traditional Muay Thai shows, none of them. And so the people who are watching them and commenting on them are, not the fans that would be watching like a Channel 7 show or a, or like a Palong Mai show or something like that. It's kind of like a casual fan, if, people like to talk about casuals, that's casuals. But I was noticing in the comments is a bunch of people congratulating the winners, like just that, saying gang gang, like, oh, so strong, all this stuff. And then the second wave, like the thing that was rolling in, was people complaining about how the scores were given, or how the points were given, I guess. And I watched some of them. I had seen some of these fights, and so I actually had an opinion on whether the scoring was right or not. And then other ones I didn't watch, and so I can't say whether the comments were correct or not, or if I agreed with the comments or not on who should have won. I laughed a couple of times on the Thai fight ones, because I'm like, people who watch Thai fight and are like shocked by the decisions of Thai fight, I'm like, are you shocked when the Harlem Globetrotters win all the time? Like, is that a shocker to you? Like, you thought the other team should have won? That's not really how that works. But whatever. But what was kind of amazing to me, of like seeing all of these Thai people who were cheering for Westerners, they were like, the Westerners should have won this fight. So in the examples of the fights that I watched, I was like, wow, these people don't know what they're looking at. Like, these people don't know how to watch Muay Thai. And then the ones that I hadn't seen, I don't know. I assume it's similar, or it could just be that it's a terrible decision. I don't know. But so, when I think about scoring, I always try to think of ways to, like, examples to give people, like comparisons to give people of what it means to, like, not know what you're looking at. I don't know American sports very well. Like, I don't know football or baseball, golf. Like, I find all of them incredibly boring. Like, football stops all the time. Like, it's just, they're constantly stopping. Baseball is really long, and golf feels like nothing's happening. But this is the thing, is that when you actually know how any sport is played, it doesn't come down to, like, who won, that's all you care. Like, you like check afterwards, you're like, who won? When you actually are interested in a sport, the strategy, like the actual game, becomes interesting. That becomes what you're watching. You want to watch a game. You don't want to just see like, 11 billion points. Like, I joke that you could get Americans to like soccer by just making each goal worth 1 million points instead of 1 point, because people don't know how to watch soccer. Like, people actually don't understand the strategy of soccer. So I often use soccer as the example for how you could change a game to make Americans like it, or how you could mess with it to make it more interesting or whatever. And I think it's a kind of good example because Americans really don't watch soccer. It's one of the few places in the world that it hasn't taken over. But it made me think about when you don't actually know how a game is played, like when you don't really know the strategy, or you don't know the nuances, or you don't know, what's really happening between the scores. Hi, baby. Don't run in the street. Don't run in the street, honey. Okay. A little naked dog behind me. Can you see him? No, he's eating garbage. What am I saying? Oh, so when you don't really understand how a game is played or what the strategy is, then you look at how do people watch that if you don't know what that is? It made me think of languages or music. If I'm listening to music that I can't understand, I'm a lyrical person. I actually really like the lyrics of a song. If the beat is catchy but the lyrics suck, I don't like the song. But if a song's in a language I don't understand, for example, Maneskin or something has Italian, I don't speak Italian, I'm like, oh, this song grooves. So it's if I can't listen to the lyrics, what is it that I do listen to? I like the quality of the voice, I like the beat, I like guitar over drums, I guess is the way to say it. And I think that it's similar to that. If you hear a language that you don't speak, what is the impression you get off of that language? Because you're not getting the information from it. So I speak German. Most people think of German as being a really ugly, really shouty, dramatic language. And you have to take into account that when you hear German as an American, it's in movies, and they tend to be Nazis. It tends to be Indiana Jones or Blues Brothers, or terrorists in Die Hard or something. These are not people just having a conversation. You might have this impression about German because of the movies that you're watching. When I lived in Germany, I was that's not how Germans talk. Germans don't sound super harsh. They're not oh, the Scheiße. That's not how Germans talk. It's all woher kommen Sie? It's very calm, And that same thing happens with impressions. So if you don't know how to watch soccer, and that the ball going into the goal is how you score a point, and that's how you get ahead and stuff like that. But if there's no points scored in a game and there has to be a winner, it's not going to be a draw because there's no points scored, and you had to say who won that game or who played better in that game, you will get things they passed the ball more. It's okay, they passed the ball more to control the other team strategically, or just because they didn't know what to do. Or you're well, the ball was on this side of the field most of the game, therefore this side was more aggressive. I think a lot of times the kind of color that people can see, or the impression people can get out of a language that they don't speak, or a game they don't play, I think aggression reads really, really well, and people are well, I can see that. I can see which side is more aggressive. And so they're I think I know what I'm looking at, because that's the part that I can understand. Interestingly, in traditional Muay Thai scoring, aggression is not who's winning. Aggression is not a good thing. Aggression is kind of you're less in control and you're trying to kind of catch up. Dominance in traditional Muay Thai is very good. I think people can see dominance a little bit less than they can see aggression. So it's one is a bold red, and the other is a little bit of is it red or is it purple? But people can see it, it's on the spectrum, and I think people can see that. But you have to teach people that. That's not something that's automatic. So just thinking about this, what do people see when they don't know what they're looking at, kind of thing. And I get that a lot when I'm reading these comments, when I'm like, these people don't know what they're talking about, because the things that they're pulling out as why someone won the fight is like, this person was punching much more, this person was like throwing much more. And then you do get commenters who know what they're looking at, and they're like, yeah, they were throwing more weapons, but none of them were landing. Or like, by the time their weapons, the weapons that actually got in, like they actually landed and got through a block, they didn't have any power on them. That's important. That's nuance. Like that's not like, oh, you're being snobby. That's how you actually judge a fight. So I think the fact that Muay Thai is judged rather than having like a goal that you're trying to stick a ball in makes it much more debatable and much harder for people to like understand the nuances of. When I'm watching golf, I can see who won because I can count, kind of thing. But someone can lose a golf game but have played a much better, more strategical game, I guess. I don't know anything about golf. But I can assume that someone had like a very good play, like they had very smart decisions that they were making, and maybe someone else kind of like lucked out or had a different handicap. I don't know. I shouldn't talk about sports I don't know, because I don't know. But another thing that I use soccer for is that when people talk about the corruption of gambling and how to fix it and blah, 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 one of the things that they propose all the time is open scoring. I've seen open scoring. They do it in IFMA. They do it at RWS. And it's kind of boring. Like, I don't love it. I guess it is like, you know exactly what the judges are thinking the entire way through, so you can't like at the end be like totally shocked. But I've also seen absolutely insane scoring in open scoring where I'm like, they don't know what they're talking about. 2 rounds in a row where they just like flip-flop it. And because it's so boring to have open scoring, especially in a 3-round fight, I think they purposefully put up weird scores in order to make the 3rd round really important. Because if you just do it where like round 1 was clear, round 2 is clear, nobody's going to watch round 3 anymore because someone's already ahead. It's just going to be a knockout or nothing kind of thing. So I think that they actually manipulate that a little bit in order to make it more entertaining. Not at IFMA, but like at RWS, occasionally, not every fight. But the thing about open scoring, to me, is it's very telling for why the strategy of Muay Thai and like how the narrative of Muay Thai came to be with gamblers. Again, if you take a game that is not judged, that like it has to do with points scored, like balls in a goal, and you make that closed scoring, this changes how people will play a game. So if you have a soccer game and you score 2 goals in the first half, going into the second half, you are not going to have an aggressive team in the second half if they're already 2-0. They're going to be incredibly defensive. They just want to keep the other team from scoring. Even if you're 1 point ahead, you might become incredibly defensive because you can win 1-0 often in a soccer match and you just want to defend it. That is a smart way to play a soccer game. That is strategy, to become more defensive when you already have a lead. People bitch about this in Muay Thai all the time. They're like, why are people fighting backwards? They should fight until the very last bell. Why would you keep trying to score when you're ahead? But it's dangerous in the second half of a soccer game. So let's reverse it. Let's make it close scoring. So how would you make close scoring in soccer? You'd put the goal like inside a black box, or you do something like with VAR, how they like, sometimes they have to check whether the ball actually went through the line, like because it kind of almost went past the line, or like whether it hit the net. Like there are things that they show instant replay in order to judge whether something counted, because it's not perfectly clear. If they did that and did not let the teams or the audience know whether that ball counted or not, and you had to play the rest of the game not knowing whether you had that point or not, this would dramatically change how you play the game, because you don't know whether that's scored or not. This is what it's like as a fighter, as a boxer, as a Muay Thai fighter, because you know there's something that you did should have scored, like you think you're ahead, you think you're doing enough, but you don't know whether it's being judged the same way by these judges. You don't know whether they like a Dern fighter, you don't know whether they like a really protected fighter, you don't know whether it's one of these shows where like peppering someone with like 9 little taps counts as much as like nailing someone really hard with 2, this kind of thing. If you don't know that, you have to play your game according to not knowing what the result is. If you know what the result is, you're gonna play the game completely differently because you're like, I don't really have to do anything. So people are like, you should do open scoring because it's unfair, but also I hate how people fight backwards when they're ahead in the last round. If you know you already won the fight in round 2 because you won rounds 1 and 2 and you only have one more round, people are going to fight really defensively. Like, no one's going to come flailing forward in round 3, which is why you have scoring in entertainment Muay Thai, like Max Muay Thai, Super Champ, this kind of thing, where round 3 is kind of the only round that matters. Like, whoever is coming forward and really bashing forward in round 3 is who's winning that fight. You could win rounds 1, 2, and half of round 3, and you go backwards too much, and they're going to have you lose that fight because of round 3. And that's kind of what happens when you do open scoring. So, all of that is to say that the solutions to things are really, really complicated because the state of things is really, really complicated. Like, you can't adjust one thing and fix everything. Like, there are many, many factors that play into how anything works and how a sport evolves and how people see and think. And I was telling Kevin that when like hardcore and super champ were new, and lots of Thais that were really good, like Thais who I had fought, Thais who we knew, they were going and fighting on this promotion and they were losing because they did not know how to not go backwards when they were ahead. Like, it was really like in their brain, they just couldn't do it. And there was a learning curve. And then they learned that they just need to like plow forward in round 3, and that's fine. But there was a very long learning curve where like this is just very antithetical to how they know how to fight, and they fought for a very long time. This is the same as coming from the West. When you come from the West, you automatically assume, because of our culture and lots of things lead you to, if you're busier and if you're more aggressive, you win the fight. Like, we just think this. And it takes many people a long time fighting in Thailand to learn that that's not the case, but you do learn it. Like, you learn that, like, oh, you actually have to, like, know where you are in the fight and play accordingly. A little bit more like a chess match. It's not like who has which pieces. It's like who's going to ultimately, win this overall arc. But I was telling Kevin that it's a little bit, because Muay Thai is Muay Thai, and a lot of these fighters have grown up in the sport. Like, they've literally been fighting for 10 years or something by the time they're like 18, 22, this kind of thing, is you change the rules, you like give them a different format of Muay Thai and tell them to fight in it. And everyone's gonna think like, oh, well, that's even because they have so much experience. And I'm like, this is more or less like taking a Thai person and a Western person and telling them to give a presentation on like Thai culture or Thai history, and you're like, obviously a Thai person should win that. So we'll have them have to do the presentation in English instead. Guys, this is Harvey. I call him Harvey Dent because he's got two faces. This is his nice face on this side. Hi, Harvey. And then on the other side, he's got a little bit of a womp. His lip hangs off a little bit. I think it might be genetic. Something happened to him maybe when he was a baby. But he's 100% good boy. Hi, honey. He has a sister who's like terrified of me, so she like wants attention, but she gets really nervous. So I haven't pet her yet, but it'll happen eventually. So what I'm saying is that it's like, give a presentation about Thai culture and Thai history, something that absolutely they should know more about. But you as an outsider could have learned a great deal about. You could have studied it specifically. But your presentation has to be in English. No matter how much you know about something, when you can't actually express it the way that you know how to express yourself, it doesn't matter how much you have an advantage on that subject. It is not your language. You could tell Thais to give a presentation on something they don't know very much about at all, Western history, and they can do it in Thai, and it's like, it's Thai, so like they might not have a lot of facts, they might not have like a lot of vocabulary in terms of like a lot of events that they can talk about, but they can bullshit around it. Like, you can bullshit in your own language much easier than you can give some kind of presentation in a different language. So that's what I think. about these like different formats and having very, very experienced Thais kind of step into them and have them struggle to dominate as much as they have previously when you have Westerners step into the format that Thais are much more familiar with. And in terms of scoring, the way things are scored changes. Small ways, like in the time that I've been here, in the 11 years that I've been here, they made changes. Like they changed how much you can go backwards at Lumpini. I want to say maybe 7 or 8 years ago, around New Year, they changed that. They made this new rule, and it was talked about in the gym because it was like, we are active fighters. We're trying to win fights. Gamblers will yell at you if you don't. Like the kids at my gym had people gambling on them, but like it wasn't necessarily their investment. But they really didn't want to disappoint people, and they had people in their family who were actually investing in it, gambling wise. And so you want to know like what the rules are. You want to stick with the rules because you want to be able to win the fights. So as much as things change and you may or may not agree with it, you want to win the fight, and so you have to follow it. This is the thing that people love to quote, this like old movie where Sanchai is talking about how he can't win at Lumpini anymore because now they just want power knee fighters or clinching or something that was not the way that he fights. And he's like, I don't want to fight here anymore because I can't do my fanciness, and they won't reward me anymore. And this is the thing. You may not agree with it, but you want to win fights, and so you either have to do what they're saying to do, or you have to not fight in that format. Which is kind of, gotta make choices kind of thing. So yeah, I'm getting just ripped by these burrs. Okay, I have to pay attention because I'm like walking through bushes and just getting burrs stuck on my legs. Ooh, that's a long one. Okay, it's cold. I've been talking a lot and walking for a really long time, so I gotta go.